The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
Here we go.
me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Friday, March 16th, Austin 316, Saturday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you're wearing your green, as this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region, on top of the melting snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Now, we're all over social media. You can follow us on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. You can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We just cracked 1,000 subscribers there. Thank you so much. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website, of course, spacedoutradio.com, where you can do a little bit of shopping in our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. Read up on my latest blog, or watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV. For over 50 years, there have been two films that have been subjected to more debate, conflict, and argument, like the famous JFK Zapruder film, along with the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film. These two stand out among the rest because it's so unbelievable what was caught on tape. You obviously have the president dying on one, but there is more than one shooter, isn't there? Who knows? In the other one, the scrutiny has been just as difficult as half a century later. There's still a fierce debate as to whether or not the Sasquatch in the Patterson Gimlin film is actually real or the ultimate ape suit of trickery. So tonight, we bring in researcher M.K. Davis to break this on down. He has spent years breaking down every single frame of this film. And we need to know tonight, is he 100% convinced Bigfoot is real? Let's find out. M.K. Davis, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. Thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us and our audience.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Is Bigfoot real? Is that the question?
That is the question.
Well, if that's a Bigfoot on the Patterson film, then Bigfoot's real, because what's on that film is real. The film is authentic. You can take that one to the bank.
We're going to get into that a lot tonight because you are going to take the time to break down absolutely everything about that film and your findings over years of research. But before you actually saw the Patterson Gimlin film, did you ever believe in Sasquatch? Had you even heard about it?
Well, it's awful hard to not hear or something about Sasquatch, But I wasn't a Sasquatch enthusiast or aficionado by any means. I was into astronomy. I took astrophotos, and I came across a couple of frames that someone had published from the original film, Patterson film, that is, and I noticed that they were just incredibly sharp, incredibly clear, and didn't look anything like what I'd seen on TV, the shaky, grainy versions of the film. And I became convinced that if I could find the original film or a copy very close to it, that all of the frames would be that good, and the film would tell its own story, and it should, it should live or die, based upon what's on that film. So we wouldn't have to be guessing. So that I began an inquiry, and it eventually led me to from Canada all the way, down to California. I began to gather frames from the film that were of unusual quality, and so it just took a while, but I've managed to acquire some of the best collection, I think, of frames from that film. Some of them actually coming from the original, and I was able to use astrophotography techniques on the frames. And then once I got the unique problems with the film corrected, such as chromatic aberration, I reassembled the film digitally and by hand, and hand stabilized it so that there would be no shaking, up like it's characteristic of walking with a camera, by holding it by hand. It looked as if it was taken from a tripod. And late at night, in the wee hours of the night, I hit the preview button. And when it ran, my jaw dropped at how good it was. And you could see the things that you see every day in life. The biomechanics, very recognizable. You could see the scapula and the muscles in the back, the spine. You could see the indentation of the spine and the muscles on either side of the spine, and people often criticize the film because you can't see any divisions in the gluteus maximus, and most certainly is there. It's only about a minute of film, but what you see in that minute leaves no doubt. Once I reached that point where the film did tell me that it was authentic, and then you begin a stage 2. Okay, it's real. Now, exactly what is a Sasquatch? What's the nature of it? What is it? The questions that naturally pop up in your mind certainly did in my mind, and it began like an odyssey for me. My odyssey is indelibly connected to that film.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the film just in a little bit here, because I don't want to give everything away way too early here, but you said you had heard about Sasquatch. At that time, before you started studying the Patterson Gimlin film, did you believe that it was a real creature or just some Indian myth?
Well, I believe that it could be. It's oftentimes, legends are connected with reality in some way. Sometimes tenuously, but yeah, I like to give things their chance. In my mind, just like the film or anything else, I think that it should be looked into. And if there's anything that could possibly, would connect it with reality, or it needs to be sort of spread out and looked at and explained. Just like astronomy, not everything you look at up in the sky, you're not going to know about everything you see, but it needs to be explained, and so you work at it.
So you had mentioned that you actually started out in film by doing some photography as an amateur astronomer. How did
right,
that?
That's where
and how did that translate then into researching Bigfoot? Because that almost seems like trying to research apples and then moving over to oranges for no apparent reason.
Well, in astronomy, when you take a picture of the sky at night, oftentimes objects that you photograph can't be seen with the eye, and some of them even can't be seen with a telescope. You use photography and long exposures, and the objects, some of the objects are red, some of the objects are green, which would be doubly ionized oxygen emission. Some of them would be blue, which would be dust reflection nebulas, which is dust. The red would be hydrogen emission. And so you select films for the target, whatever the target has in it that you want to look at, and that are sensitive to those films, to those colors. And you can even use filters to filter out the other colors, things like that. So there's also the introduction of false color images, which create contrast. Even though the colors is not correct, you can see the object much better. That type of thing. So I applied those techniques to the film, and I examined the frames when I got them, and I wanted to know what the problem was that was contributing to the overall unsharpness of the image. And one of the problems that the film had, and it's a characteristic of most inexpensive lenses, is chromatic aberration. In other words, not all colors are brought to the same focus by the lens, so that you see one color would be sharp and another color would be unfocused. And the unfocused color contributes to the overall unsharpness of the image. So you use spectrally, you divide the colors and remove the one that's contributing to the unsharpness, and then you reassemble the film, and it boosts the sharpness considerably. And that's what I did first time. So my first rendition of the film was displayed in black and white because of the off color, because of having removed the unsharp colors. And then I developed processes for restoring the original color, but keeping the sharpness. So it's been a work in progress, even up to this day. There are unique things about this film and the conditions that it was shot under, and the type films that were used and the lenses that were used that needed addressing particularly to this film. And I developed techniques to do that. And I think that the version that I have of it now is the most stable, the smoothest. There's no flickering whatsoever left in it. So I think I've got the best that there is of the film.
So did you decide before you started looking very much into the Patterson Gimlin, did you decide to really look into the entire Sasquatch field? Did you go looking for this creature? Did you do any Sasquatch hunts? What kind of research were you doing to learn about it, to see whether or not that film eventually was real?
Well, once I decided that what was on it was real, I did. It has an effect. You know, if it's real, what is the nature of it? You know, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to people in general? That something this unusual has been caught on film. You know, was it the only one? Were there others? And if there are others, where are they? Are they just there, or are there a distribution of them all across the country, or maybe the globe? All those questions are pertinent. So it's just curious. Being curious led me into making an inquiry into the nature of Sasquatch and all those other questions. So once having determined that it was a worthwhile thing to look into, then I did so.
So how did you go about that? How did you go about learning the intricacies of this creature? And did you ever have your own sighting?
Well, I have been to where I guess you'd call the hot spots, and I've been to where the film was shot, probably 7 or 8 times. Plan a trip back there again. There's plenty of evidence that there are Sasquatch in the area still. I have seen the direct evidence left behind by Sasquatch, such as tracks, footprints, across that very same sandbar. I have, and in 2008, I filmed one, and we had gone across the sandbar, and on the sandbar were 3 and 4 inch trees that were snapped off like toothpicks in a big circle. And we went up the mountain behind the sandbar, and at about the 1,500 foot level, we found what I call a lair. It's on a 45-degree slope. It's just a flat, completely level area. It's behind a curtain of vegetation, so you have to kind of just part the vegetation and enter in it. And it was a dead deer and a bunch of tracks that appeared to be that of a Sasquatch. So it's a waterfall coming down the hill, just trickling through there, fresh water, and the floor was carpeted by soft ferns. I call it a lair because it looked or appeared to be like a lair. When we left that lair and went back down the hill, down the mountain. I got out ahead of the other two guys that were with me. Well, they had some foot problems, and I went out ahead and made it down first, and I crossed the creek. That would be Bluff Creek, and came down the opposite side, down a trail. It was out of sight of the creek, but in the floodplain of the creek. And when I got down there near to where the logging road came in, I crossed the creek. I actually didn't cross it. I went down into the creek and stood in the creek. And I was going to film those guys when they came out and came up the creek. And I was waiting. I filmed to the right. I filmed to the left. And then when they came out, I walked towards them. And I filmed them. And when I got home, a friend of mine, he was wanting to sell stock footage, he was out of a job and he wanted to start a business. And I told him I had this footage from California. He was welcome to copy it and use it. He had my permission. So I let him have the tape, going to get it back later, and he never returned it. And it took me like 7 years of emails and phone calls, and I finally got a mutual friend to put pressure on him to return it. And I don't know his motives, but he finally did send them in the mail, all the tapes that I had loaned him. So this is like 7 years after I took this tape. I had never reviewed it. So when I sat down and reviewed it, I saw something white move in the frame, and I backed up and I zoomed in, and it was a figure sitting down beside the creek, and it had something white in its hand, like a cloth or maybe a tarp or a skin or a buckskin or something, and it wrapped something up in it and put it out of sight up on the embankment there. And the more I zoomed, and the more I enhanced, the more it appeared not to have any clothes on at all, but a coat of hair. And I realized that, and I knew that we had seen a lot of very fresh evidence while we were there, and I knew I had gotten one. And there was no other people there, and we were like 25 miles back in there. And it was 7 years. It was very anticlimactic. I felt kind of bitter because I had taken this and was not allowed to look at it myself. I didn't see it in my viewfinder because the viewfinder was small and it was kind of dark. You're under a lot of trees and stuff, and I walked literally within 10 to 15 feet of this thing. And in the video, you can hear a rock bang, so there must have been another one. You can hear two rocks hit each other. And that's when this thing got everything it had. It had that white cloth or whatever it was that it wrapped, and it backed into the brush. And I had taken a still picture. My camera would do both. And I looked at the still, and it had backed into the brush, and I could see the tips of its knees. And it had backed, all it did to conceal itself was back into that brush and sit still. And I never saw a thing. I walked right. I guess it could have had me if it wanted. My friend, he came out of the woods and sat down on the bank in the sunshine and started peeling an apple, and I took a picture of him, and he's looking right straight at it. Something had alerted him, and he had looked that way. I asked him about it, and he said, well, he didn't really know what he was looking at, but something told him something was going on. He looked that way. The thing was just right over a log from him. I was just I couldn't believe it. 7 years later, I posted it on YouTube, and I post my stuff on YouTube or whatever. It's with a view to people making up their own minds. I'll tell them the circumstances, and I'll tell them everything about it that I know, and then they can make up their own mind whether they want to believe it or not. But I posted on YouTube, and I call it the Croucher, because it was just crouching down there by the creek. It wasn't any of us. It wasn't any of my party, and there was no one else down there. But we had just examined a whole bunch of fresh Sasquatch, evidence. So I knew they were. So that's part of the frustration of this, is that you're looking for a legend. You're looking for something that's so cool under pressure. It doesn't bolt and run most of the time. It will back away and get up behind a tree or up in some brush and just freeze. They're not easy to see. And that I kind of got some concept of the true miraculous nature of the Patterson film, that this Sasquatch would saunter out in front in clear daylight in front of these men was truly outstanding, and maybe perhaps one of a kind to get something that clear. I hope not, but if there's, of course, if you can film one, there's others, and if there's a male, there's a female. If there's a female, there's a male, and they're probably little ones, and all the interference that comes from capturing one on film. All of those things that we're all familiar with in the natural scheme of things.
I have a question coming in from Twitter for you, and this is from Canadian Joe at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. He is asking, MK, did you ever make any casting of these Bigfoot prints, and is it possible to tweet them out?
I found a set of 4-inch deep prints on the Patterson film site in 2015 when I took some Japanese gentlemen down there. They were shooting a documentary from Japan. These prints were 4 inches deep. And I didn't have not 1 ounce of plaster with me. I always regretted that. I'm not really a cast person. I think there's value to them, but there's enough casts out there that if that was going to do it, it would be done. I've always said that if a footprint leads me to a Bigfoot, then I'm all for footprints. But I was so taken aback by the depth of these prints, because in October, after there's been no rain for a while, this sand here is made of shale. Finely ground shale, and it's not the type of sand that just rolls out from under your foot. It binds up and it supports a lot of weight, and especially after it's been sitting without rain for a long time, it gets packed and densely packed. And I could not even put a dent in it, stomping my feet, and these tracks were 4 inches deep. The sheer weight of it was the impressive thing to me. Yeah, size, yes, but the weight, it's otherworldly heavy. And I think the Canadian John Green recognized this, and he offered $100,000 of his own money to anybody who could duplicate the depth of the tracks in that same substrate. And it's never been claimed. So that to me is the most. It's the flesh of the Sasquatch. And according to my research, a 1-inch cube of Sasquatch flesh is going to weigh more than a 1-inch cube of human flesh. That it's different in its literal makeup of its muscles. They're much more dense, and they weigh more than even you think looking at them. We have a tendency to put human parameters on them. You know, we all watch each other, and we all know what each other weigh, and we look at a Sasquatch, and it's, well, he was so big, he must weigh 700 pounds. Well, if he looks like he weighs 700 pounds, he probably weighs 1,400, according to my research. There was a man named Jeff Blickman who conducted a study of the Patterson film. He was paid $75,000 to do this. This is back in the early 90s. And he determined that the Patterson subject, I believe, weighed 1,465 pounds. And he was laughed at, even by the people who paid him. But he stuck by that. He says, my research, everything that I did in the scientific way. And he said, my pen and pencil and pad says that she weighs 1,465 pounds. And that's what I'm staying with. So laugh at him or not, he insisted. Now I know from my research that he probably wasn't that far off. I disagree with him on the height that he attributed to her, but the weight is reasonable according to what I've been able to determine.
There is a lot of debate, and we'll start opening it up into the film here. There is a lot of debate on whether or not that is a person in an ape suit or it is absolutely real. When you decided to make the choice to break down that film, did you have any preconceived notions of whether it was real or fake?
No. I wanted the film to do the talking. My whole goal was to get the film in the best form and presentation that I possibly could, and let it tell us whether it's real or not, or whether it's a man in a suit or not. You know, I was willing to accept either verdict on that, but as it turns out, like I told you, my jaw dropped when I first ran it because I saw things that I recognized. Bone and muscle, when they're swinging, you know, they have certain looks to them. You know, you see the things going on. Muscles, tendons, that type of thing. Calf muscles tightening up. You know, whatever it was, it certainly wasn't a suit. Unless you want to call it a birthday suit, it's a birthday suit. You could say it had a birthday suit on. We obviously, you know, we occupy the planet with other things.
Yeah, I very much understand that. But why then do you think, I mean, there's so many hidden creatures in this world, and Sasquatch probably being one of the biggest of them, but every year we're still finding brand new creatures, whether it's monkeys, bugs, frogs, fish. It could be absolutely anything. And we're still finding new creatures in areas that are uninhabited and that have not been, you know, wrecked by human population or something along those lines. In North America, where our continent has pretty much almost all been explored, why do you think so many people are having troubles not only buying this creature is real, but buying the fact that this film is real?
Well, in the area where the film was taken, if you leave the creek and you go up the mountainside, you enter an entirely different world. And at different altitudes, there's different things living. The deer, there's not many deer down low. Most of the deer are up in the higher areas. Bears come through. They pass from ridge to ridge down through the creeks, but they don't spend a lot of time there. I found trails up there that I think were probably used by Sasquatch. It's up there in the mid-range, up on the side. It's a 45-degree slope, and you could see this trail coming across. And it was a big, about a 4-inch stick that was jammed down in the ground in the middle of that trail. And there was no obvious reason for it being there. It had a sharpened end on it. And it was, semi-rocky soil. So I feel like that where if you walk the ridge tops, you might encounter a person. If you walk down in the creek, you might encounter a person. If you walk that trail, you probably never will encounter a person. It's on a 45-degree slope, very difficult to get there. My friend actually fell over a precipice, and I had to go down there and try to help him get out. He wrenched his shoulder out. He couldn't keep his footing. He slid by me, and I tried to grab him, and I missed him, and I slid with him, and he went over, and I grabbed a sapling and managed to keep myself from going over it. And we went into this deep ravine, and there was this little creek coming down there. It was very, very choked up with tree falls and things, but we couldn't get out, so we decided to follow it down. And we followed it down, and when we got near Bluff Creek, I said, well, this creek must run into Bluff Creek. And it didn't. It ran into a hole in the ground. The entire creek went off into a hole in the ground. So you have these hugely inhospitable terrain, and you have these ravines that you can't even see once you get down in there. And then you have whole another element. You have an underground system of some kind, because that much water going into a hole in the ground and not reappearing anywhere, it has to be going into some kind of cavern. So we only think that we're seeing everything, but we're not seeing but a small fraction of it. You can't fly over it to see it. Maybe you can see things on a large scale, but not on a small scale. So Sasquatch detecting requires that you go where Sasquatch are, and then you may have to occupy that area for a good while, unless you just get lucky. And then they may come up actually out of caverns. There's some evidence for that, because in the Patterson film, in the very early stages of it, in that part of the film where it's kind of violently shaky, and they usually don't broadcast that part, there's some frames that show the creature directly from behind, and the cameraman is filming up at it. He's down below an embankment, and you can see where the hair is worn off the glutes on the inside, and that told me that it spends a good part of its day sitting down somewhere. Overhang, a cavern, something like that. It does a lot of scooting around. And so we don't really know enough about them to know. If we got lucky and one saunters out in front of the camera, that doesn't mean that it lives there. And that doesn't mean that it saunters around all the time. It just means that on that one occasion, one did, for whatever circumstances were there that caused it. It may not, and probably isn't, the Sasquatch's natural behavior.
Kevin is asking in the chat room, he's saying, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, were partners in this film. They didn't have a lot of money, and one of them actually came out saying that pretty much the entire film was faked. Was that ever brought forward to you or anybody else? Because I have heard that too. I've just never heard it from either of their voices.
Yeah, well, Roger Patterson never said that it was fake. Bob Gimlin never said that it was fake. The person who said it was fake was a friend of theirs, a neighbor of Bob Gimlin, a childhood friend of his, that claimed that he was the man in the suit, and they went down to Bluff Creek. And I listened to him for a while. He was on some talk show similar to this one way back when, and he continued to talk, and he mentioned that he went across he talked about the white sand on the sandbar, and that immediately cued me in that he had never been there, because the sand only looks white on the film if you're looking at a generated copy that's a copy of a copy of a copy, because when they took this film, they took a positive film. It never had a negative. And when you copy a positive to a positive, it builds contrast. And in other words, the whites get whiter and the darks get darker. And if you copy it enough times like that, then what was once fairly dark and blue sand it's got a sheen to it because it's shale sand. Shale has oil in it. And in bright sunshine, photographically, that sheen will wash out if you keep copying it, and it will turn white. And believe me, there's no white sand anywhere down at Bluff Creek. It's dark shale sand. If it's moist, it'll be almost black, and if it's dry, it'll be blue looking. And when he said the white sand, I knew that he had just watched those copies of the film that were the multi-generational copies on television, and he had never been there. So it's anybody can concoct a story, especially if they're close to the people who took the film, because they listened to their story, But he was very unsuccessful in producing a suit like it. He never produced the suit he claimed he wore, and he got a man to build one, and he did the walk, and it was laughable. Nothing like the film.
So why do you think there is so much negativity or hostility towards this film?
I really don't know. I really don't know. I think that skeptics are proud people. They like to think that you couldn't get one over on me. I'm too smart. It's that sort of thing. It's ego driven. They don't look at it objectively. I used to laugh. I say, well, a skeptic, it's like a bobblehead doll that only works one way, back and forth. It's just no to everything. So they cheat us all out of a lot of things. Skepticism. There's nothing's ever been discovered using skepticism. We wouldn't have anything at all in our world. We'd be at sticks and stones if everything was viewed skeptically. I'm not saying normal skepticism, where, you offered this evidence and now I changed my mind. A flaming skeptic is not going to change his mind in the face of no matter what evidence you present. This film is a solid film. You know, what you see has to be real. You have to address it as real because of the biomechanics. But a skeptic is going to continue to say no, 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 no. So if he had his way, we'd all be cheated out of a discovery. And I think Patterson was cheated out. And our world would be it would be flat. You know, there would be no sparkling in our world. Nothing that energizes us and is good for the heart. You know, what you ever watch one of those Blue Planets or nature films? You know, that they're done in 4K.
Yes.
And it took 5 years to shoot. Don't they just make your heart jump?
At times.
You know,
at times.
What if everybody doubted it? You know, this isn't real. No, this is something staged in the studio. You know, and all that work, that the people did is called into question. And for long, they become like, you know, something, you know, to beat up on. You know, and that's kind of what happened to Patterson. He didn't have the wherewithal to fight back. You know, all he could say is, I promise you, you know, this is authentic. We took this is real. And that's all he could say. But he was outdone. Scientists that looked at it never asked for a second showing. And for the most ridiculous of reasons.
So are you saying then that, sorry for cutting you off, that most of the people who are making decisions at this are just armchair editors who really don't want to believe?
A lot of them are. I'm not condemning people for being skeptical. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, there's skepticism and then there's claiming skepticism. If a person's just naturally skeptical but is willing to change his mind in the face of obvious evidence, then that's healthy skepticism. But if you're skeptical of all things, you're never going to be involved in a discovery. I can promise you that. I've listened to him. I've listened to him speak. I got Benjamin Radford to sign. I got a life-size poster of Patty, and I got him to sign it. He says, I don't believe this is real. I said, well, sign it anyway. Put a negative sign behind it. You know, because to me, you know, that's all part of the journey of this film, is the skepticism as well. A lot of scientists, they say, like, well, that's a female, and females don't have sagittal crests. So they said this can't be real. Sagittal crest is the pointy head that you see on male gorillas. But what if that's not a gorilla? Why would you be wanting to put gorilla parameters on something that's not a gorilla? You know, why not look at it twice and decide if this is really a gorilla I'm looking at? If it's not a gorilla, then why the sagittal crest should not be an issue? You know, it's a matter of I think that it's hard. It's hard to accept it because some people have religious objections. Some people have, objections as far as their belief in evolution or their belief in the lineages of man. It's man-like. You see a figure there that's man-like. And so is it a man? Rather than reject a good film, then why not try to decide what it is? Because it's not that objectionable if you are able to determine the nature of it. Is it a man, or is it an ape, or is it somewhere in between, or is it something totally different from either one? The curious nature of science has been bypassed in the case of this film. It's object first, and then dismiss it without a lot of examination. What I've done on the film should have been done a long time ago. It should have been done back when the film should never have been shown to science without correcting its flaws. So a photographic technician should have had access to the film to put it in its best form and then show it to science. Patterson seemed rather desperate to get some cash out of it. I know he was sick, but it really worked against the film to do that, because your swearing to it is not enough. He thought that the film was good enough, and it would have been had it been put in its best form. But of all the people that viewed it up in British Columbia, and they included quite a number of scientists, they never asked for a second running. It only lasted a minute. So you got to wonder where were their scientific curiosity.
With so many people who have seen Bigfoot and had that experience with this creature, you would think more people would consider this a real film. I know what I saw when I saw it, and I saw the pointy head, I saw the shaggy hair on the back that was beautifully laid down. It was something that I found very, very intriguing, and yet this film is still 50 years later so controversial. Is it people, in your estimation, who've never seen the creature that are more skeptical, or is it people who have had an experience who are not believing it?
Well, it's awful hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes, A personal experience, I say, would be the number one thing you would need to believe that Sasquatch exists. But aside from that, this film is the number two, because it's almost like a personal experience. Although I say this, some elements are missing. The nature of how the film came about, and I know a good bit about that, it was unnatural. So you're not seeing a Sasquatch behaving naturally on this film, but you're seeing a Sasquatch. So that in itself, in its best form, and I know you haven't seen, but you can go. The best version is the large format version that I posted on artistfirst.com on the Bigfoot Central show. You can go to artistfirst.com and go down to the menu, click on Bigfoot Central, and then look at the March pics and video. And there's large format clips from the new processing. Those things are awful hard to deny. And I plan to finish out the entire film using that processing, but it's very laborious. It takes a lot of time, and but it's well worth it, because it really all those pictures really pop. You can see all the biomechanics and everything in the film. So it's not as good as a personal sighting, but it's right there close. For those lucky enough to have ever seen a Sasquatch, they don't need a lot of convincing. And of course, the film is for people who haven't.
We only have about 90 seconds here. Do you believe this creature is male or female?
It's definitely female if breasts are an indication. It has very pronounced breasts, that clearly are pendulous. You look at the stabilized versions, you can see the breasts kick with the leg motions. And they have a little bit of a lag time indicating that they're heavy, at least the density of water. And so they bounce against each other and move about. So the assumption is that it's a female. Also has areola on the breasts. I'm kind of convinced, of course, I'm not looking at a human, so I don't want to be guilty of putting human characteristics to it, but from what I know of life, that there possibly could be a small one somewhere. But there again, you have to just kind of accept the film at face value. So you're looking at something odd and unusual and not necessarily bound to human parameters. If it's not a human, then it, like I said, the density of the Sasquatch is very, very heavy, and that's way beyond human parameters. So we're looking at a form of life that is, I think, unique. It may, it is one standalone.
Right. I'm gonna get you to hold on right there because we got to go out for break here. Our guest tonight, M.K. Davis. We are breaking down the Patterson Gimlin film, 50 years of controversy in the realm of Sasquatch. We're going to come back with more M.K. in hour number 2 right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lorian Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
To the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. This weekend, we got Joe Roop coming in for Spaced Out Saturdays and the beautiful and talented Elizabeth Anglin coming in for Spaced Out Sundays, Cosmic Passport. They get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com while I exit the cabin and head out into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi and maybe some hair product right now. But that's okay. We got your weekend covered right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM. And if you are listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station Revolution, financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Arachibutyrophobia. Arachibutyrophobia is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. We are also live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Make that Spaced Out Radio, so you go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, or you can also watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking Bigfoot, namely the 50 years since it's been filmed. The Patterson Gimlin Sasquatch film. Now, the gentleman who has taken the time to break this film down, frame by frame, is M.K. Davis, and he is our guest tonight. M.K., thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you here.
My pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Now, you mentioned before the break that you have been to Bluff Creek about 7 or 8 times. Maybe describe that area for our audience, such as myself, who has never been there.
It's really rough country. It's high country. It's just south of the Oregon border. Mountain ranges. It's just one mountain range. It's not really high peaks in that area, but the country is overall is some of the roughest country there is. So, as soon as if you tried to walk across it, you'd just be up, down, up, down, up, down, all the time. And we're talking about 45 degrees, so you go up the next hill, you're literally having to crawl up it. You can just put your hands out and touch the ground. It's just really, really rough and inaccessible. But there's some roads that go in there, and they usually go to the creek bottoms, or either they're on very top on the ridge tops. So you can access some things, but when you get off of those roads, I mean you're in some land that it's been seldom accessed. So it's a good place for something like a Sasquatch to hide, and that they keep consistently appearing there. You people see them. I've seen them. I've seen their sign. So for whatever reason, that's one of the world's hot spots for Sasquatch, Bluff Creek.
And really straight up north right here to British Columbia where I am, I mean, this is a hotbed, this entire area of North America for this creature.
Well, I can see why. If you go there, you can see why. I mean, it even if you saw one, it could get away easily. So it's not going to be bothered a lot. Maybe by hard-headed people like me, but otherwise, it's not going to be bothered a lot there. If you see it at all, it'd just be a brief glimpse or something like that.
Add to the fact that the forest is so dense, and I know my area is that way too, where we have a Sasquatch gifting site up in our area, where we have found prints, and I can tell you this, I mean, you go 200 feet into that forest, it starts looking the same. And you lose direction very quick. So it's very easy to see where a Sasquatch can just disappear, even a creature of that size, without even being seen or heard.
Yeah, that's true. and they have their own, unique things about them that make hiding a little bit easier for them. I've examined microscopically what I was reasonably sure was Sasquatch hair, and it was a matting of hair, just kind of balled up. Looks like maybe it would form on your rear end if you sat on it very much. So the hairs were kind of translucent. Some were clear, some were semi-clear, some were brown, some were black, some were completely clear, with no color, and some were white. All of them had very, very tight scale patterns. They were all round hairs with very tight scale patterns on them that would be, reflective, because it's a smooth shaft, and refractive because it's translucent hair. One of the clear hairs actually carried light down the shaft, and it came out in another spot on the hair. It was the light from underneath the microscope. I've got a picture of that. So if you watch the Patterson film, let me recommend to your listeners that, because I have them these people were good enough to post them in a format that's large. If you go to artistfirst.com, and on the home page, scroll down till you see they got a section on UFO, aliens, and paranormal. You'll see Bigfoot Central. Click on the Bigfoot Central. You'll go to that page, and then scroll down till you see the March show. The audio's on the left, and the pictures are on the right. Click on the right. It says click here for pictures. When you go to that page, scroll down, and you'll see links. And it says left hand open clip, left hand on object clip, click here. Back muscles and glutes, click here. Leg muscle contraction, click here. Clip 1, 2, and 3. All those clips were done with the new processing, and they're in large format. They're well worth. You have to wait till they load up. They're large files, but if you have a high-speed connection, it'll load on up, and once it loads up, then it'll, return to a normal speed, and just, take the time to let them load up. And when you see it run like it's supposed to run, it's shocking how good it is. You'll see on I believe it's let me see. I think it's clip number 3. As it passes by those trees, you'll see the hair turn from dark to almost overexposed. And, in my opinion, it's because of translucence in the hair. It'll be so white blonde that you can't hardly see it. And then it'll get dark again. It just determines on how the sun is hitting. When you have something like that, as covering your body, then you can just sit still and kind of change your angle a little bit and change the entire way that you look. It's because of the ability to reflect and refract with the hair. You can see it in this film. Go to clip number 3 and let that load up, and you'll see when she goes through those trees, you'll see everything change. You'll see the entire back go from dark to really, really blonde. Because she changes the angles to the sun.
So with this film, when you went there to Bluff Creek, could you feel the energy of this creature around there?
Well, I think that the place, just having the knowledge that it's a special place, and there are special places on this earth. Northern California is geologically active. It's got a lot of movement. They have frequent earthquakes there. We went up the hill behind the film site one time, and the ground was hot. It was at least 100 degrees. So underground, you don't really know what goes on in those places, because whenever you have a rock that is under stress from movement, that it's certain types of rock, quartz, for instance, generates flows of electrical flows, electrical fields, magnetic fields. All geologists will fly over a place and take a magnetometer reading and determine, if that certain type of rock might hold oil. They get a reading of magnetism from the earth itself in that one particular area being emitted by stressed rocks. If you go over an old meteorite crater impact, perhaps it's buried from eons ago, you get that fractured rock that it produces a flow of ions. So certain places do have that, and certain people sometimes are sensitive to it. They can feel it. And sometimes it messes with electronic equipment. I had a brand new camcorder that the brand spanking new, first time I ever used it there. And the video screen went out on it, the little view screen. Fortunately, I had an optical one that I could pull out and use it. But whenever I left the area, it went back to working. It's never malfunctioned since.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mention that, because there are so many people out there who have used trail cams and other sorts of electronic devices who have said they have had the same issues as well with their gear breaking down or dying in regards to being around this creature. They'll capture bears, any type of wild cat, rabbits, deer, whatever it may be, but when it comes to Sasquatch, it just doesn't seem to work.
Well, that's why I say you don't put human characteristics to something that's not human. Although it may be man-like, it certainly is not us. And we don't really know what the capabilities are. We have a 60-second film, and for those who have been fortunate enough, like yourself, to have a sighting, they're usually just kind of brief. You see things that are plenty well enough to convince you that it's there and it's not someone hoaxing, but it doesn't tell you everything you need to know. The ability of a Sasquatch to hide is legendary. And for whatever reason, they seem to get around the many traps and stuff that man has devised. And so I was there once, and there was a rock slide on the trail, and the hillside had come down, and my camera would not focus on that rock slide. It no matter what I did, you turn it away from the rock slide, and it would focus. So I don't know why, but something there, I just have to accept it at face value that sort of thing exists there. The whys and what fors, I'm not totally sure. So you can only theorize, but the pursuit of the Sasquatch, if you pursue it, you will eventually run into things that are unexplainable and strange. And like I said, you're looking for legends. It's don't think that you're looking for just an ape, upright walking ape, or just a human being. It may very well be neither. It may be something entirely of its own, and with whatever abilities that they have, which are, I'm sure, a plethora.
Good use of the word.
We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. You know, you kind of have to just accept it as it is, and you push on to try to get closer to them and to get some kind of study done.
Good use of the word plethora there. That is our show's drinking word. So we're going to have many, many people now taking a drink as the chat room now lights up with everybody yelling drink. So thank you. They're all happy that you use the word now. Absolutely perfect. I got a question coming on in here. And do you think that Bigfoot has the ability to cloak themselves?
Well, like I said, they seem to have that hair, which it's not a cloak, but it's like camo times 100 in its ability to hide them. It's a super camo. And if you watch that clip, if anybody's gone over to the artistfirst.com site and they're looking at clip number 3, watch as it passes through the trees and see the different, the hair, the entire surface of its back change. You know, and I believe personally, from what I've seen on the Bigfoot hairs, that's due to the sun changing angles on hair that's able to reflect and refract. And so it literally looks like the background around it. But it's not cloaking. It's just an interplay of light. If it froze right there, you'd be hard to pick it out. You know, if it just suddenly stopped and froze. And that's sort of the way, if it got in the shade and the shadows, you'd see darker mottled appearance on its back. So it's something with a unique ability to hide. It's got those abilities that are, I consider to be natural, not supernatural, but I don't know that it doesn't have supernatural abilities. People swear that it does, and they think they experience those themselves. So I can't get into somebody else's head, so I take their word for it. But what walked in front of the camera for Roger Patterson that day reflected light, and he was able to pick it up on film. And it should have changed a lot of things. It's just very unfortunate that it fell into the wrong hands, you know. But it's not too late. As you can see, if you're looking at that same clip, this is a quantum leap.
Let's get to the day of the film. It was in the fall. Leaves falling all over the place. Temperatures getting a little bit cooler around the entire area. Take us through that day from your research on what happened.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I beg to differ on the date. And for whatever reason, those men chose to use that date. It doesn't indicate in the film that it's October. It indicates that it's more like late summer due to the shadows. I've got some pretty good frames of her, and she had a very short shadow on the ground. And short shadows do not occur in October at that latitude. The sun was high overhead, and that indicated sometime in late summer. So I'm not using that as any kind of denigration to their story. They told the story they wanted to tell for whatever reason. If you study astronomy, you inevitably study positions in the heavens, and you can't get a short shadow at that latitude in October, right? So the sun just does not get up high enough to do that. So I'm saying, based upon examination of the film is sometime in the summer, late summer.
Well, take us through that day then that they went through.
Okay, as best I can. They have a leader on the film that shows them looking around and riding through, and you see fall colors, but that leader is not connected with the creature. It's something that was added on, I guess, to lengthen it, because you only have about 60 seconds, a little over, of the creature. And the creature was shot in two sections. I call them walk sequences. The first time is when they first encounter her, and she's walking away, and then she goes over there to the edge of the woods and falls over, literally falls over, and her rear end is showing back at the camera. And then it suddenly changes to another sequence where she's upstream and walking upstream in the open. Neither of those is a guarantee that they're connected, because there's a stopping and starting of the film. So that's why I say I tend not to listen to stories, even their story. I tend to just look at the film itself. And it's edited, whether it was done in a dark room or whether it was done in camera, is irrelevant. And when you stop and start, you can't guarantee that it's a continuous piece of film. I know that it appears to be the same Sasquatch, so I'll say that. But there's a length of time, and no one knows how much, between those two walk sequences, where the camera was either stopped or started, or there's some darkroom editing or something. So because she completely changes position and on the sandbar, she's at a totally another place from one frame to the other, which is not physically possible. That's what I have to go with. It's an edited film of a living, breathing Sasquatch. So their story doesn't jive, and it never has jived. They use color 2 film, or Kodachrome 2, excuse me, and it's very specialized film that was only produced or processed in 2 locations in the United States, and it was a minimum of 2 weeks. And they shot it allegedly on a Friday and showed it on a Sunday. So that's just not possible. So that's why it's very important for an analyst to just examine the film itself. It's not any of my business as to why they told that story, but I'm not the first to question that. Many people have. But it doesn't indicate that the film itself is not authentic. And I think skeptical people use that as kind of a hedge against the film being authentic, but it should not. We don't know that we know that what you're seeing is a Sasquatch walking in broad daylight, and they just simply don't do that naturally in front of 2 people. So this is a very unnatural situation.
I'm a little bit dumbfounded here, because in one section you're saying that the film is botched. It's a botched film. Yet you're saying the creature is real. And I think this is where a lot of people, in my opinion, MK, are having troubles whether or not this is an actual real creature.
Well, I can understand that, because the skeptical mind, and we all have skepticism, it's kind of built in. No one wants to be took in. If you look at the frames and look at all of them, the first part is separate from the second part. You know, it could be a minute, it could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 weeks and 30 seconds. Once that camera is stopped and restarted, you don't have a guarantee about the time that has elapsed. See, so I accept that the Sasquatch is on the frame, it's on the film, but there's a break in the film, and so you see the Sasquatch going one way, break, then it's going the other way. So yeah, that doesn't imply that the film is not real. That it just implies that there was a stopping and starting, or something like that. Maybe something in the dark room. I don't know. But the people who took the film have a story that they tell. They don't deviate from it, but it's an impossible story. They could not have gone all the way to Eureka, California, sent this off by airplane, and gotten it back in from Friday to Sunday, and then gone back to the film site and made tests of the tracks. There's not enough daylight. So it is a storyline, but it in no way detracts from the film. They took this film, and there's something that they don't want known, and it's not the fact that the film was hoaxed.
Another question coming in for me here on Twitter. This one coming from Anthony, who we like to call the tattoo man around here. He says, MK, do you believe that Bigfoot may have some sort of psychic ability? And I'm going to add to this because there's a lot of people, Anthony, who have had some strange occurrences with this creature that really tends to tie in with a lot of stories from First Nations or American Indian folklore and legend.
Well, you know, there's a lot of strangeness attached to a Sasquatch, and there are people who say that they have heard what you call mind speak. And like I said, I can't get into somebody's head. So I take their word for it that they heard something. But you know, like I said, it's until you experience it, and like you said, you had a sighting yourself. Experiences that you have yourself are much more convincing. So if a Sasquatch talked to you, then you're going to be convinced of that. But it hasn't talked to everyone, so it's hard to convince everyone of it. But I take the word of the individual unless I have a reason not to.
Well, let me get to this question then, because Kevin in our chat room brought it up, and I think it's a valid point. He didn't mark it as a question, but I think it defines what we're saying about the frustration with this film. It does appear like they edited it in a studio. It would be virtually impossible to line up those frames. So have you been able to piece it all together to line up the frames up properly?
Oh, yes. Very, very. It is as perfectly aligned as you can get it. Like I said, I recommend you go once again and check out those clips because they're showing it in a perfectly aligned way. It is in its most stable form. You can see an awful lot going on. That's why I say you can't deny this film that it is what it is. Whatever other questions come up about the veracity of the two men, to me is an irrelevant thing. This film doesn't need them. It doesn't need anyone to vouch for it. So you know, it's whatever the circumstances were that caused them to form a story to explain it. It's irrelevant to me.
So when it comes to the film, when you started piecing this together in proper order, how long did it take you to do this?
Long time. I usually wait till everyone else is in the bed. I stay up. Just one frame at a time. And I run it through a process, a filtering process to remove the chromatic aberration, and then another process to restore the color, and then another process to stabilize and sharpen. And the new processing method right now mitigates blurry frames, and it also increases the density of the image by 3 times. So this version is 3 times denser than the original film, and it really pops. Everything pops.
So when you started putting this film together in the order that you felt was proper, explain how it looked to us, if you don't mind. Paint us a picture.
Like I said, it just made my jaw drop, because you see all the biomechanics and everything going on with it. You see the glutes moving against each other. The gluteus maximus, the 2 halves of the buttocks. You see the scapula on the shoulder, under the skin, moving back and forth. It's got a hairstyle. It's like a top knot with a kind of a ponytail coming back down. It goes back on the back between the shoulder blades. You can see that. It's got a form of hairstyle, primitive, but managed hair on the head, and just an incredible thing to see.
And in that 60 or 62 seconds of film where we actually see the creature walking, there is some discrepancy whether or not this creature was bending down at the creek before getting up and walking away, or whether it's just walking away. What did you see on that?
Well, my frames begin with it already up and walking away. But I have Peter Burns' testimony that he said he talked to Patterson, and Patterson told him that it was squatting down, holding something black in its hand and licking it when they first came upon it. Or before they were able to get the film on it, it was up and walking away. But that was what they saw, according to what Patterson told Peter Burns.
And the way it's walking, were you able to stabilize the film to get it clearer? Because from the action that I see right at the beginning, there seems to be, a lot of haste going on, especially with the horses that seem to be acting up.
Well, I've stabilized the beginning as well, but I've concentrated almost everything on this new processing on the second walk sequence, because that's where she's the largest in the frames. The different people, when I first began to work with the film, I was told by a lot of people that you can't do anything with it. You can't blow it up. You can't. It's only 1/8 of a millimeter or something like that, 18 millimeters or something like that on the film frame. And maybe all that's true, but at what point, I asked them, was it that tall on the frame? And they looked at me funny. I said, well, she goes from this big to this big as she walks away. I mean, she changes sizes continually. She's walking away at an angle. And so I began to question, well, what I'm seeing is something that's really, really good, a really good image, so they said, well, how far was she from? And they gave me the distance. And it's really not explainable using those figures. So what my question is, what do you do? Do you deny what you're seeing, or do you question the data about how far away they were? You inevitably have to accept the images, and so I told him, I said, well, this is what I'm looking at is so good that I could blow it up and make a wall mirror around it, and it wouldn't lose much. And they said, oh, impossible, you can't do that. So I did it. And my first attempt at enlarging, I enlarged it to full size. So, it was probably about 6.5, 7 feet, maybe, just a guess. And it was clear as a bell. And it really shocked a lot of people. But some people kept arguing about it. And so they argued to the point where I blew the face up to 6 feet tall. And it was still very, very discernible. It didn't lose a lot. So this was an image that came from the original film. So the quality of the original is beyond dispute. Now, no one argues that. And you might find something on the net about it. I've posted it before. So I didn't get much argument about the quality of the original film. So I began to stabilize and to treat the frames and everything. And I posted my first efforts, like I said, in black and white. Everyone was pretty much aghast at what was on it, how clear it was, stable. And it's been an ongoing project ever since. That there's an old saying in astronomy that if you can increase the resolution of an image 1%, you'll see 10 new things. And I say overall, this film has been boosted far beyond 1%. And so the amount of detail that you can see on it, with the stability and with the treatment of the frames, is far quantum leap over what it was in the original. And I'm very, I'd say, proud to have been able to help this film, to put it in its best forms. And it told its own story. It didn't need me. It doesn't need Roger Patterson. It doesn't need Bob Gimlin. No one can hurt it, and no one can help it. It is what it is. An authentic film of a Sasquatch. So the new processing is, to me, is beyond dispute. It lifted the film, the quality, far beyond what it originally was. So I'm quite happy. I feel very comfortable that once having viewed this, a person can go out with a great degree of confidence and look for a Sasquatch and know that he's not chasing the wind.
What size creature do you think we're dealing with in this female Sasquatch?
I was able to take her. In the first walk sequence, she puts her foot directly behind her, perpendicular to the camera. It has a known size because they casted the tracks. I was able to use that as a measurement, and I come up with about somewhere in the neighborhood of 6'6", 6'7", something like that, depending on the, she's kind of stooped. If she stood up straight, she may go a little higher. Her most outstanding thing is the breadth, the girth. She's just tremendously broad, muscled up. And like I said, the most outstanding thing about them is their weight. You can't build muscle like this. A normal human being can't. You can't build it to this point. No matter how much weights you work out with. she's got internals that are different to produce that. You know, she's the muscle fiber and the muscle mass is so great, you know, that she has to have a different process to do that. Her immense weight would mean that she would have to have a huge lung capacity and a huge flow of blood to feed that kind of muscle. So the heart has got to be huge. You know, all of the things that we know about that keeps a living thing going. If it's like our heart, if it's the same process, will all have to be immense. So you know, she's you don't want a Sasquatch like her to step on your foot. It will crush you. And if she slapped you on the back, she might just throw you to the ground. Everything's heavy, very, very heavy. And you watch the clip, the number 3 clip, and you can see the mass in motion, and you can tell that the way the arms carry, forward, backward, is massive. Her bicep at 6'7", her bicep is 10 inches across, 10.5 inches across. If you measured it straight across, you know, that's without being able to have a 3D where you can graph it. Just 2D measured across is 10.5 inches. A pretty good sized bicep on a man's about 5 inches. You know, in 2D straight across. So here you have a female with over double the bicep width, and her husband's. If you could find him, you can only imagine what his arm would be like. So you know, it's not human, but it's not us anyway. It's not us. Now I say not human. It may be Homo something.
How much effort did you put into the way the creature walked and the muscle movement of the legs?
Yeah, the legs are famous. Lots of studies have been done on the legs. They don't straighten out. You know, they stay bent, and the body is cocked forward, which is an unusual thing. There are people who do walk that way. It's not the way people normally walk, but I mean, in the human examples, you can look across the length and breadth of the globe and find people with all sorts of odd ways of walking, of doing different things, you know. So you can't really say it's beyond human, but it's not very common. You may never see it in your lifetime, another human walking like this. It's really strange and odd. The amount of pressure on the tendons in the legs has to be immense, but it's got a huge buttocks, you know, which anchor the top of the legs. Just the muscle moves down, and they're all built up to where this Sasquatch is walking down, you know, the creek bed. But if it walked over to that 45-degree slope, it could go up it with very little effort. It's not going to tire it. It's got so many. It's so muscled up, and it's so well suited for the habitat it's in. You know, those mountain ranges and rough countries do very little to impede it.
Yeah, this is definitely this is definitely a creature, due to the terrain it lives in, that is not going to have a lot of stored body fat.
No, I can't see much fat on there. It's just nothing but muscles, and that's what the two men said. So that was an accurate description of it. I check it with their story. I check the film with their story, and that checks out. That they could see muscles moving in the back all over, and that shows on the film. So on anything like this, you check it back with the story, and like I said, the story doesn't jive on certain things, and I'm not trying to put the man down or anything, but I make a note of it, and I say, well, it doesn't jive, but the film is what it is, and so I wait on an explanation that does jive with it, and I'm not press. I don't press people or anything like that, but I just say, well, sooner or later the explanation will come. The actual cause of this film will come, and it doesn't involve a man in a suit or in any way. It just the circumstances were extremely unusual to get a Sasquatch to saunter out in daylight like this in front of people. And, that's all you can say.
Did you ever get the opportunity to talk to Bob Gimlin about this?
I've talked to Bob many times.
And what is his reaction to your research?
Well, he's appreciative for what I've done on the film itself, but he doesn't like me saying that the story was concocted. And I can understand that, but I have to say that because it doesn't jive with the film. So, I have no choice. I wouldn't be true to myself if I accepted the story, because the story doesn't explain the film. So other than that, I know that he's seen my work, and he's very appreciative because that was a life-changing event for him. But I don't want to take anything away from what the two men accomplished. It's history making.
So is there any animosity towards you going into in-depth on this creature from Mr. Gimlin, or is it something where he's been through this so many times where he's like, do your best and just tell me what you think, MK?
Well, you put yourself in his shoes, though. No one wants, their story to be doubted. But, like I said, I'm not a person I'm not in this to make friends or lose friends or anything. It's not about friendships. I like people, and I like to meet people, and I've done some of the best work on this film, I know. But I'm in it for the sole purpose of understanding what's on that film. Once I've gotten the film to where you can see it good, then understanding the nature of it is paramount. So I don't want to be misled. I see what's on the film, and I see exactly what, that where the areas are that the story doesn't line up with. And so whatever reasons they had for making the story, I consider to be kind of none of my business. It doesn't.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I said it doesn't need Bob to vouch for it. It doesn't need Roger Patterson to vouch for it. I know some things about the film. I've learned over the years, but none of it involves a hoax. None of it. So, it just simply is what it is. That we do occupy the planet with very unusual human type or like thing, whether it be a homo something, or maybe it's not homo anything. The nature of what it is like I said, is paramount, and the film, it's on film, and the film is now in its best form. So, if it inspires anyone who looks at want to go out and try to locate one or to figure out the nature of what's on the pin, then I'm immensely proud of that fact. It needs to be done. Good people need to employ themselves at it, and it's certainly possible.
We only got less than a minute here, so I'm going to hold off on any more questions in regards to this, but I want to continue with the reaction of your research in regards to this and get more questions in from our audience, if you wouldn't mind going into hour number 3. And then when we get to the 45-minute mark, we're going to do our Thought of the Dave, which is something we do on Facebook that I'd be curious to get some of your opinions on by some of our guests in regards to their own Sasquatch sightings, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't mind a bit.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Then it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. Tonight on the show, we have researcher M.K. Davis talking Bigfoot tonight, Sasquatch, the Bluff Creek incident with Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin, and whether or not the Bigfoot film that they took 50 years ago, November of last year, allegedly, is actually real. Do you believe it? I do. Our guest tonight, M.K. Davis, does. But we'll find out more on Sasquatch right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries, so tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. I'm heading into the weekend to find my Zen and my Chi, so don't worry, we got your weekend covered right here at SOR headquarters. Joe Roop will be in for Spaced Out Saturday tomorrow night. Yes, the man from Arkansas with the great dulcet tones will bring you some live great programming. And then on Sunday, Cosmic Passports on Spaced Out Sundays with Elizabeth Anglin gets at it. And both shows starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Iraqi butyrophobia. Iraqi butyrophobia is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on periscope.tv. We are live on Periscope every Monday through Friday. We're also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We just passed 1,000 followers on that. I'm pretty excited about that. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, rock out to some Bumblefoot, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. So, here we are talking Bigfoot all night, especially regarding the Patterson Gimlin film, one of the most scrutinized films in history. Probably number 2 to the JFK Zapruder film. This gentleman, who we have on tonight, M.K. Davis, has literally broke down this film frame by frame. He states that it is a real live Sasquatch that we are watching move on this film. M.K., welcome back.
All right, glad to be here.
Right before the break, we were talking about, Roger Gimlin's opinion of your research, but I want to get into a little bit more with this, and it's going to start with Dawn's question in the chat room, and she is asking, MK, are you worried that any of your treatment of this film might have distorted minor details?
No, everything that I've done to it is improved. This distortion would be like if you don't know what you're doing. No, it's a quantum leap in quality better. It is when you improve it 1%, you see 10 new things. When you see 10 new things, then you begin to build a little confidence in the film. You see scapulas moving and stuff. Nothing I did made that scapula move. It was on the film. All I did was able to make it boost contrast, density, things like that. That they do that with the space telescope, the Hubble. None of the image that you see are the raw image. You'd be very disappointed if you saw the raw images. They put them through processing, and then the technical term they use nowadays is it pops. It leaps out at you. Spectacular. Raw data and process finished product in photography and processing is the finished product is what you're looking for. You're looking for the most possible information that it will give you. You're not trying to make anything, but you're trying to get the most possible information that is on it.
Well, let's go to another question then, because this field of research is so fickle when it comes to people's attitudes, when it comes to people believing what they want to believe in regards to whether or not this creature is real and whether or not the entire video is real. What has been the reception towards your research in regards from the mainstream or the Bigfoot public? Are they buying what you are doing, or are they highly critical?
Not much criticism for this new processing method because it's crossed the thresholds into high quality. So it's not much dispute, and there's not much, and it has the effect of you know what you're looking at. It's quality's good enough. The contrast is up there. The sharpness is good. All the things that you need to have a good image are there on each frame, and then you have the cinematic effect when you run it as a cinema, that you retain the previous image while the next image is showing, and that is so much improved that there's no flicker even at slow speeds. It's all smooth. It's like video. I'm going to send you several clips from the new processing as soon as I get them loaded up into a large file transfer service. I'm at 28%, 29%, and then you'll receive them in your email, and you can download them and put them on a browser there on your website or whatever for people to look at. If you want to, I think you'll be quite surprised at the quality.
Mm-hmm. I look forward to seeing that, actually. When it comes down to the reaction that you have got in the Bigfoot field, what are some of the positives and negatives that you have received comment-wise?
Well, most of it was resistance to the fact that anything could be done to the film, that any more could be done. They just didn't believe that the film was good enough to that it could be improved. And I received a lot of negativity, but I was able to make some improvements on several good frames from the film that from that, when they could see that it could be done, then I began to get some help. And then people began to come through and produce the frames that I needed. And I'm forever grateful that they did. They put the film ahead of themselves. And because they did that, we have this new version now that it should be a game changer. And I'd be happy to show anyone step by step exactly what I did to this film so they can have confidence that nothing was added to or taken away from the film. It was just put in its best form.
Let's go over to Twitter here. A question from Andrew in North Vancouver coming in. He says, Michael Crebo is an alternative archaeologist who believes human beings have been on Earth for millions of years. He proposes that humans coexisted with other ape-man creatures. If this is true and we have survived that long, do you think then Bigfoot could be just as old?
I don't know how old Bigfoot is. You get the impression that you're looking at ancientness, but I really don't know how old it is. And there's a lot of arguments about how old we are. So there are people who believe that take the Bible literally and believe that we were created in 7 literal days and that type of thing. But if you examine the Bible, the word day is kind of a relative term. It'll say back in Noah's day. Well, they're not talking about a 24-hour period. You know what I mean? So when it talks about creative days, there were obviously very long periods of time. The Bible mostly deals with man as we know man to be now. It doesn't talk a lot about the distant past when there may have been, a different type of person on the earth. One perhaps that has nothing to do with us. the other animals that are fantastic that have been on the earth, like the dinosaurs and things like that, are not addressed in the Bible, or at least not very much. So the Bible is mostly for modern man, for lack of a better word. What else was on the earth that was man-like is obviously, they dig up the skulls. They were here. They dig up the skeletons. They dig up Lucy. Remember Lucy?
Yes, indeed.
I think, what was the guy's name? Johansson, that dug her up and named her Lucy after a John Lennon song. But they're not us, it's pretty clear. But they seem to, a lot of people it's a popular notion that they led to us. And so, no one has proved any such thing. And like I said, I take things at face value. I've got a film of something here that's not us, but it's man-like. And I don't know how long they've been there. The film doesn't tell me that. But, I assume long enough to be established. So they find things on this earth that are clearly old because they find them down in the strata that's old. And you got to take that at face value. Yeah, you can form theories or listen to legends or things, all kinds of things about how they got there, but face value, they were there. There are some tablets that were they call them the Nepal tablets that were in Sri Lanka that describe the creation of the earth and the advent of man upon the earth. And they say those things are like 30,000 years old. They're on like clay tablets. So, I suggest that an open mind, keep an open mind, and take things at face value, because that's what we have. That if it's that old, those tablets are that old. Obviously, the writing is that old. And it describes the beginning of man and that type of thing. So is man 7,000 years old, or is he 30,000, or is he even more, 100,000? So there's lots of room for good people in that field, to help figure those things out. That's why I think this film is important, because you see the good versions of it, then maybe it will inspire some gifted person or some person that is doggedly determined to solve the mystery of what's on that film. And when he does it, he solves it for all of us.
Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. There's just an immense. We long to know more about ourselves. And we long to know more about our history. We long to know. It's kind of built into us. And we scratch the ground, and we dig, and we use all our resources to try to put together our own story. And in that film, if you look at the Patterson film, you're looking into a keyhole, a peephole at something strange and exotic, and maybe even very old. And it needs explaining for our sake.
Follow-up question from Andrew here on Twitter. He says, MK, do we ultimately want to discover the truth behind Bigfoot? If they are corporeal and it could be proven, then don't you think this species would be hunted down and destroyed one way or another?
I don't think that it's that possible. I mean, you may get one or two here and there with huge efforts, but they're experts at hiding. I mean, that was such a freaky set of circumstances that they got this film in the first place. So, that's why it's such a rare piece of footage, and it's not that easy to exterminate something that you can't catch up to, or you can't find, even with all the effort that they put into it. The type of effort that people put into it often brings about no results. If you were to take like an army of people and go into Bluff Creek, you could stomp up and down that creek all you want. You're not going to see nothing. It's an unusual set of circumstances that happened there, and that's just I have to leave it at that they got a Sasquatch to walk out in front of them, and what happened, how they did it is fodder for another story.
I want to get to a question from one of our listeners down in Australia. Aussie Steve is asking, MK, do you believe the Australian Yowie is the same species as Bigfoot in North America?
That's a good question. I've never been to Australia, but I've got some friends down there that chase the Yowie. And it's got some differences, but quite likely it's a similar, at least a similar type. They say that it has a little bit of a pot belly, and it's got some of them have fangs, eye teeth that are necessarily fangs. Yowie tends to be a little more aggressive. Those differences, but those differences exist in the human family as well. We don't all look the same, and our dispositions are certainly not the same. We're not going to divide ourselves up according to disposition, and probably shouldn't do that to Bigfoot either. It's probably a similar thing, yeah.
There are a lot of copycat type videos of Sasquatch out there, MK. And, on YouTube or whatever video streaming site it is, it seems like always somebody is trying to pull the rug over people's eyes on what is real and what is not. You're someone who has delved into some films deeply here. What would you say the percentage is of real to fake videos that you have seen?
Well, believing that a film is fake and knowing that it's fake is quite a different thing. Most of the time, the people that fake them, they kind of have the same MO. They don't let you have a good look at it. Whether they use the shaky camera or whatever, darkness or whatever. That doesn't mean that it is fake, but that's kind of an MO for a lot of fakes. I have, my requirement is to see something that I recognize as natural. There's some films that were taken in East Texas back in the early 2000s that are pretty impressive. They're not as on the quality that the Patterson film is, but they show it. Just show some physical things that are being done that, it's hard to believe a person could get those accomplished, wearing a suit. So I have a more than the average confidence in those, and I consider them to be real unless something comes up to tell me differently. But they're the majority, and that it's YouTube is it's kind of a depository of all types of films, and people upload them all the time, and just everybody's got a camera with them just about now with their phone cameras, and then there's a lot of video cameras as well, and so everybody's a videographer. If you've got a high quality camera, you should be able to take some high quality, at least reasonable quality film of a Sasquatch. So if it's down into that category where you can't tell nothing about it, that's where it is. I just have to leave it at that. Unless I can see like what you see on the Patterson film with scapula moving and muscles moving and things like that, muscles tightening. I just have to relegate it to, could be, but you can't really. It's not a slam dunk. Most are not slam dunks, as could be expected. Really, you're looking for a legend. You're looking for something that's known to be rare, known to be hard to find, hard to film. So logically, everybody can't be getting films of a Sasquatch. If it would have been in the books a long time ago.
With the other videos there, I mean, we've seen literally hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on YouTube, and I would say the majority of them are hoaxed one way or another. But have you come across any other videos that you could point out to us that you believe are just as real as the Patterson Gimlin film?
Not to that quality, no. I got some, like I said, I have some confidence in because they seem to be accomplishing, physical feats that would be hard for a human to do, a normal person to do. So I have a little more confidence in those. And that would be a series that they're from East Texas, and one of them that I uploaded to YouTube was, I call it the White Bigfoot. It was a solid white one that runs on all fours and then gets up and runs on its 2 feet. And it brings its back legs up in front of its head as it's on all fours. And that kind of thing would be very difficult for a human to pull off, especially wearing a suit. So I feel fairly good that it's probably real. I've met the man who took the video, and I feel fairly confident that he's on the up and up, and he's not lying to me. He didn't stand there with his hand and take the video. He left a video camera running, and it ran, for many hours. So when I first examined that video, I had a lot of tape that had nothing on it. There were 6-hour video cassettes, and they were sent to me by a third party. I had not met him at the time, the person whose camera it was. But it's very hard to sit down and watch a video of the same scene where nothing changes for hours. And then a Bigfoot event takes place that lasts 30 seconds. You realize that you can just turn your head or go get a cup of coffee or whatever and miss the thing. But it was about 50 of those tapes that I examined. And there was quite a bit of Bigfoot activity on them. They were all done by cameras left running all night long. And all day, too. A lot of them were daylight. So, that's I applaud the effort that they put into it. And I think that it has lots of value. Probably it's most likely real, but not of the quality of the Patterson. So the Patterson film remains at the top.
Do you believe then, with the oversaturation of hoax films, that this is the reason why everybody, 5-6 decades later, continues to go back to the Patterson Gimlin film?
Yeah, I think that is. And plus, you not only have hoax, like staging a film, but you also have CGI type stuff that's available to the average person now. So, yeah, they had a phone app that would put a Bigfoot in your video. You can just take a video of the woods and put Bigfoot in there. So, as time goes by, instead of things improving, they're actually going downhill as far as getting video evidence that a Bigfoot exists, it's becoming harder and harder to do because of that type of thing. So it may end up that the Patterson film may be the last great footage that you could count on because of that. And I remember there was a video on YouTube where some Japanese people were going, oh, yeah, they were pointing down there. There was a Bigfoot down there. He was just, kind of squatting down, eating. They were all pointing at him, but it was inserted. It was by CGI. It was an app that did it. You could put a Bigfoot in any situation you have on your camera. So you don't even. My point is, you don't even have to be that clever. It doesn't have to be that much of an effort. And so we at the same time that it's the best of times and the worst of times when it comes to that. And so as we continue on and develop technology, we may have seen our better days of catching a Bigfoot on film or video.
So what would you think it would take outside of a body to prove the existence of this creature?
Well, you don't have to have a body. You can have a piece of the body. Yeah, a piece of a. Let the Bigfoot could still remain living. I mean, if you could get it, the DNA evidence or whatever. But the Bigfoot. I'll say this. I divide Bigfoot into two categories. There, what I call a true giant, which is the footprint of a true giant has the toes splayed on the ends, and they're forward on the foot. They don't have the steep arch, the like a human foot has. All the toes are in line, and they're splayed, and it's a different type than what you see on the Patterson film. The Patterson film basically had a track that looked like a very large version of our feet. And there's a reason for that. And the Hoopa Indians told me the reason for it. But I don't know if you want to get into that kind of thing tonight, but there seems to be no upper limit for the size of a true giant. They get really, really large. They find their tracks on up to above 20 inches in length, which is, but the type that you see on the Patterson film, they're smaller and they're less aggressive. The true giants, you can get in trouble with a true giant. That's why I say the one you see on the Paul Freeman footage, which I believe that to be real and authentic. It looks a good bit different from what you see on the Patterson footage, and it's a true giant. They left a footprint with those splayed toes all forward on the foot. And if I were out researching Bigfoot and I came across a track like that, I wouldn't follow it because you could get in real trouble. If I ran across a track like Patty, 14.5-inch track, very flat-footed, heavy, you're not likely going to get in trouble with those. They're more reticent. They tend to want to walk away. Their disposition is much better. And the Hoopas basically told me that, and I found that to be true in my studies. So they're not all exactly alike. It's what I'm saying. And so it kind of pays to have a little knowledge if you're in the field, because you don't want to get in close proximity to some types, because you could lose. You can end up in missing 411 real easy. It's an element of risk to it, and and there's always an element of risk going into places like that anyway. Bluff Creek area has the highest density of bears in North America. And they're pretty much about like rabbits are here. They're just everywhere. I walked upon a bear, and I was walking up a hill, and I was looking down at my feet. I shouldn't have been. And I heard breathing. That's how close it was. And I looked up, and this bear was walking down the hill straight at me. And he was looking down at the ground, too. And we were about to collide. And I hollered to my friend. I said, "Bear." And this bear looked up at me, and I could tell just for some reason, I could tell that he wasn't going to do anything to me. So he jumps off the edge of the road and goes down a steep embankment and is gone. Those are the hazards of Bigfooting in those areas. The mountain lions are the same too. I've had a mountain lion experience there too as well.
Yep.
But if you were to encounter, and I'm sure you've been around Bigfooting enough to know that some of the tracks, like the true giants, like the Paul Freeman, if you look at some of the casts he made, all the toes are in line across the front of the foot, and they all point forward. Those kind you don't want to follow. You'd be best to turn around and go back the way you came.
Up here we battle a lot. Up here we battle that a lot as well, and you can throw in grizzly bears in our area too. And I've been tipped off to one spot up here, which is an old shut down mine. And apparently around this mine there is a lot of action, but you have to dodge some of North America's biggest mountain lions and grizzly bears in that area. And so it's very, very dangerous, but we're going to go up there this summer, and we're going to take a look, and we're going to make sure that we can possibly see something that we want to see. So it's going to be very intriguing. But you're right, the danger is out there.
You have to exercise due caution there, for the more normal things and for the abnormal things as well. A little bit of knowledge goes a long ways, though. Like I said, if you go out and you see those type of tracks, and take my word for it, it's a difference in the two. You don't want to get close to what the true giants, and because they're aggressive, and they don't like you there, and they will take you out. And the type that you see on the Patterson film, a lot less so. And the Hoopas explained it to me, but it takes a long drawn out story, and of how that came to be. But the true giants used to live in Bluff Creek, but they're no longer there, according to the Hoopas. There's nothing but the patty types there now, and they're not too afraid of those. But the true giants were pretty much terror stricken when they were there. True giants, so they're still around, but they're not in the Bluff Creek area. You still find them up in the high places, high mountains, and they. If you look at the Paul Freeman footage, you're familiar with that footage?
Yes, I am.
If you watch it, it looks more. It's got a heavier coat of hair. It's got a kind of a lumber to it. It goes up and down when it walks, where Patty's real smooth. And it almost did not retreat. It stopped and stared at him 30, 40 seconds. It looked him over. And he was lucky to get out of there. The Hoopas say that if you encounter one, you speak to it in whatever language you know, whatever your language is. And All the while you're talking, you're backing away. You back away. And the reason for that is that it makes the true giant unsure of whether you're alone or not. If you're talking to yourself or talking to something that it can't see. So it causes it to pause because they know what a gun is, and if somebody's out there with a gun, it keeps them from coming in on you. And that's what Paul Freeman did. It was inadvertently, he just talked to himself, and that may have been what saved him, because that thing wanted a piece of him. It just didn't do it. He was steady talking to himself. Oh, there she goes. All the time he was walking, he was talking to himself, and that was his saving grace, I believe.
Let's get to a question from Kevin here in the chat room. He is asking, do you think, MK, that the brand or type of film stock that the film was shot on had a lot to do with the amount of information you have been able to pull off of it?
Most certainly. It's the second best film that Kodak made. The only other film that was better was Technicolor. The processing for Kodacolor or Kodachrome 2 was like this, and they kept the processing a secret for many years, even after the patent ran out. Nobody knew it because they paid their technicians extra to be silent about how they did it. But it amounted to soaking the film in dyes in a dark room. They would have a dye, like the reds would be on the bottom layer. There'd be several layers of colors on the film, and they would put the film spaghetti style down in this vat of dye and time it. And they knew exactly how long it took to soak all the way through to the bottom layer. And then they would pull it out, wash it, and then they would put it in bleach. And they knew exactly how long it took bleach to soak through. And they would pull it out before it made it to the bottom layer. In other words, it bleached everything out of the top layers. And when it got to the bottom layer, they pulled it out before it could bleach that out. And so they had the reds on the bottom. Then they would go with another color, and they would time it again to go to the second layer. And then they would pull it out, and then they had to pull it out before it made it through to the bottom and contaminated it. So it was a timing process that they knew exactly how long it would take that second layer of color to go through the second layer on the film. And then they would take it out, and they would bleach it out, and they would time the bleach till it only took the top layer out. And then they would put it in another, and it would go, and they would, only a short period of time, they'd pull it out, and it would only go through to the top layer. And it seems like it's so complicated that it couldn't even work. But it produced some of the most stable, durable, some of the best color film that Kodak has ever made. If it's done right. But you see, it's so complicated that it could only be done in certain places. Only certain labs did it. Only 2 labs in the United States did it. And they weren't anywhere around Bluff Creek. So that's why I say that the storyline, if you know all those things, you know that their story was concocted. But it wasn't for the purpose of covering up a hoax. It was for the purpose of covering up circumstances. And so that's just, I'll leave it at that. But authentic film of a Sasquatch on some of the best. That's why that film, you can do so much with it, because it was so good a film. It was very high quality. When I went to visit with Mrs. Patterson, Roger Patterson's widow, she took a shoebox out of the top of the closet, and she went to pull an envelope. She was going to show me some of Roger's letters, and when she did, she accidentally pulled out some photographic transparencies, and they fell on the floor. And I picked one of them up, and she said, "Oh, those are Roger's negatives." And I said, "No, ma'am, these are not negatives. These are positive prints on the transmission images, on 4x5 transparencies." And I held one of them up to the light, and I was just stunned at the quality. It was just fabulous. And she had frame 352 and some other frames, and so she let me go and take those frames to the photo house there in Yakima. And we had those frames professionally scanned. And I was the first one to release 352 when people see it. And my gosh, what I had thought, it was that much and more. I thought early on when I went to, first decided to work on the film that somewhere there was a good quality version of it, a very clear, spectacular version, and I was right. That film, the original film, wow. I had a very, very good visit with her, and she told me a lot of things about the film, filled in a lot of gaps, and which I was grateful for. Some of it was relative to the storyline, and others were relative to the film. But she was very cooperative and helped me enormously in my efforts, which I'm indebted to her for that. That's when you get to visit with those people, and you realize that Roger Patterson, and Bob Gimlin, and Patricia Patterson, and all of those people are just people. They're regular people that underwent a very abnormal experience,
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell, from talking to her that she missed her husband. She'd never remarried.
Mm-hmm.
And she's had to make business decisions and things like that where she really would rather him been there and made him, kind of a sad thing to see a person all those years, that he was still so dear to her. That's why I hear a lot of people talk very badly about Roger Patterson, and I don't really care for that. Whatever his failings were, he was an average person. He was who was trying to do a very unaverage thing, and he got on film something spectacular, and and he did not receive his due for that, and that's the great sadness of the whole thing.
Right. On that note, we're going to go to the thought of the day right now. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we put a question on my Facebook page daily, and we read the audience's answers. And MK Davis is going to be joining us. We're going to get his opinion on this as well. Today's Thought of the Day question to round out the week: if you've seen Bigfoot, what was your reaction to seeing it? I know mine was just jaw-dropping. I just stared. I wanted to capture absolutely everything in my memory. And yes, I did have a iPhone on me, and yes, I did forget that my phone was in my pocket. It happens when you see something that isn't supposed to exist. So let's get to some of these responses. John says, I had a juvenile crash into my Dodge 3500 4x4 in rural Oklahoma on a 2-lane country highway at sundown about 8 years ago. I had 2 witnesses with me. It literally just ran into my passenger side front quarter panel, bounced off, and kept running. Southeastern Oklahoma is full of them in the Ouachita National Forest area. We have seen them many times there. What do you think about that, MK?
Well, like I said, you can't really share the experience with him, but I always enjoy hearing people that have had encounters. You can't doubt it because I've seen that Patterson film and I've seen the one that I filmed, and I know they're there. So if you know they're there, then certainly people can have those things happen. So if I don't have a reason to disbelieve it, then I believe it. I'll take their word for it. I'll take your word for it.
Let's get to a couple more here. Liz says, woken up from sleep. Me. Oh, look, a Bigfoot is looking at me through the window. Are you who I think you are? Telepathic question. Bigfoot. Yes. Telepathic answer. Me. So now that you've checked me out in person, what do you think? Telepathic question. Bigfoot. Telepathic answer. You snore. That is hilarious, Liz. Absolutely hilarious. Let's get to Jeanette. Jeanette says, I was okay with it, but only probably because of the long period of hazing before this. It wasn't happy I moved where I did. I feel like that it recognized the respect I had for the land, although it may have thought I was as dangerous as it was given how it presented itself. Nice to know it recognized my intelligence as well as I did Bigfoot's. Yes, telepathy was involved prior to my seeing it. Have you heard a lot about the telepathy there, MK?
Well, yeah, I've heard people talk about it. Like I said, that's a personal experience. It's one of those things that you can't really physically prove. You can't record a telepathic message. It's intriguing to me that people seem to say over and over that it does happen. So I take their word for it. It's one of those things where you can't share it. You can talk about it, but the experience itself is very personal. So it's. But like I said, we don't know everything there is to know about them, and it needs looking into. We need good people to do it.
Let's get to a couple more here. Corey says, if I had only had another 2 seconds of seeing it, I think I could have actually described the face better. But I actually ran as hard as I could to my pickup and got out of there. I thought it was chasing me, but looking back, I don't think it was. Tessa states, I didn't see it. I just heard it lobbing boulders down the mountainside. It was a bit scary. The next trip I found footprints. I would love the chance to actually see one. Cisco stated, I drove as fast as I possibly could away from it, as it was closest to my son's side of the car coming out of a cornfield. Joe states, first, I'd say, hi, Mr. Sasquatch, nice to meet you. I'd like to first apologize by pissing my pants and screaming like a girl and running away, starting now. Oh, that's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. I read these cold, so I don't know what they actually say until I sometimes have to shut myself up. Let's see. Wayne states, it was on a dark 4-lane highway, no other traffic in sight. It was in the left-hand lane on my side while I was doing 70 miles an hour and saw it hunched over in the middle of the left-hand lane. Absolute total fear. Every hair stood up on my body. I literally stopped the car in the middle of the highway as soon as I could. Mind you, I was doing 70 miles an hour, so it took me a little bit to get stopped. After I got stopped, I go out and look back up the highway, but it was so dark by that time, I had went too far to see anything but total fear is all I could say. A lot of people still fearing this creature because they don't know how to react to something they haven't seen before.
I'd say that's probably true, very true. It's to some people it's otherworldly. You know, it's not within their experiences. You know that. So you're seeing something outside your experiences, and sometimes you're on sensory overload. You can see something very clearly and very well lit, but it's such a short period of time that you can't take in everything there is to take in a second or two. You know, so you're left with sensory overload. You know, you have a hard time describing what you just saw clearly. So, you know, all of that comes, you know, factors into it. That's why I say a Bigfoot experience, a Bigfoot sighting, often is not very long. You don't get much time, or maybe perhaps the lighting is poor, or maybe something else in it. So you don't get the. It does. You feel inadequate afterwards. A lot of people do. That they wanted more but didn't get it.
Let's get to a couple more here before we got to start calling it the night here on Spaced Out Radio. Andy says, I've never seen Bigfoot, but the lady whom I got a puppy from for my wife told us that she had, and there was a government facility behind her house that frequently released Bigfoots, and she would see them and said, and I quote, it had nice buns. This is a true story, I swear on my grave. Well, we don't know how we can really take that one. Angela states, being 6 years old and not knowing what it was, I was scared to death and thought it was a real-life monster. I still have a fear, but I am hoping to get another chance to encounter one and perhaps ease the feeling and realize that it is just as important as I am here on this earth. Well, they are a creature of the forest. We got time for one more tonight. And we're going to end it with the Ukrainian watermelon, Ron Moniak. Nothing but wind in my eyes as I hightail it the hell out of there. One consultation and saving grace is comfort in knowing the bugger can't catch me because he would be slipping in my turds. Wait, what a way to end the week, Ron. Thank you so much. That's our resident Ukrainian watermelon right there from Saskatchewan. Okay. Everybody wave at him because Saskatchewan's so flat they could actually... Well, we can all see him waving. So make sure you're waving, Ron. Wave back. MK Davis, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a pleasure. Could you take about 30 seconds to tell all our listeners where they can find your information and your videos?
Well, I have a blog. You can find it on, it's called the davisreport.wordpress.com, where I have some of my latest stuff up. The best stuff I just sent you. Whenever you post it in large format, that would be the best stuff. The blog site tends to compress it a little bit, lose it a little bit. The Artist First site has some as well, artistfirst.com. Bigfoot Central on there. So now you have few clips from it, and those are in its best forms. So you know you're looking at the best, and you can make up your own mind, but it's a game changer. So you can also find me at Green Wave FB 2010 on YouTube.
Wonderful.
And that's an old football site that I converted to Bigfoot stuff. I got a lot of YouTube videos about the Patterson film and about a lot of other films.
Excellent. Thank you so much, MK. You hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you want to come hang out a little bit on Periscope, I might stick around on there for a little bit. Periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. Trip, get it in the chat room. You know where it is. Want to say thank you for a wonderful week. with Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. This weekend, we have Joe Roop in for Spaced Out Saturday night, and then on Sunday, Elizabeth Anglin is in for Spaced Out Sunday's Cosmic Passport. Both shows starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. But the big thank you goes to all of you, whether you're at work, at home, in your car, on Periscope, Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, the veterans in their Facebook page, and on Spreaker. You guys were awesome tonight. Thanks for a great week, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. See you later. See you Monday.